Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Company You Keep, Season 1, Episode 3. Great episode, and a lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, I love this whole, they were working with a con man that they naturally didn't like. I wonder what their beef is with him. I mean, what's his name? Jones, was it Jones Malone or something like that? He's someone that they've known for a while, since their childhood. Also, if I'm not mistaken, isn't that the actor? Oh God, he was Abigail Spencer's character's boyfriend. He was the main dude's lawyer in Rectify, if I remember correctly. It might be the same actor, it might not be. Seeing him pop up and stuff, I want to say he might have been a lawyer dude from Rectify, but maybe not. Either way, he's a con man that they've worked with in the past, but they're like, I guess we have to work with him, but none of the family likes him, not even Fran. So it's like, all right, we'll work with him. He's conning a very rich person, Margaret, out of her money, and Margaret's played by the actress who played Ava in DC's Legends Tomorrow. It's like, Ava! Which is just, when I see her, I'm like, oh, that's so nice to see her, so dope, but it's just a constant reminder of, yeah, we never got that, what could have easily been one more last season of Legends or something. It's just a reminder of Legends being gone, not getting a proper ending, Either way, putting all that aside, I thought it was such an interesting development when they're like, you know what, we're not going to screw over this lady, that it was actually Charlie's idea to screw over Jones, because it's he saw because it's okay, we're just conning some lady, but then he found out wait, you're engaged to her, because it's also, because I guess Jones doesn't know about Charlie's recent developments with Tina, and it's for him, it's oh, this is someone using love to con another person out of it's no, I'm not about that. So instead of going after Margaret, they're actually they're making Jones say, I keep saying Jones like it is the thing, but we'll just say, home dude, they're going through his plan oh, we're still on your side. But then, Birdie secretly takes Margaret aside. It's hey, let me tell you everything he did. The way he approached you, it's oh, happened to really share a lot of the same interests, because con men do their research. So he knew what things, the commonality to kind of draw her into a sense of security, just make it seem we have so much in common. And then took away, disappeared for about 3 weeks. All of a sudden you start missing him because you kind of go on a couple dates that didn't go too well, and then you kind of miss this connection you had with someone else. It's kind of baiting and just waiting to reel them in. It's quick engagement and everything. It's right. Oh, the story about the mom, he never got to know, and this is her wedding ring and stuff. It's yeah, I know, because he's been pulling this con since we were in high school. It's gee, which also kind of goes, I guess it's supposed to mean hey, you don't, the classics never work out. When it's worked your entire life, of course you're going to keep going, and you think you'd change it up a little bit, but the fact for Birdie to be able to be yeah, this is it, because it's that's your shtick, so you think you'd change it up a little bit, but maybe it's kind of implying Home Dude's kind of a one-trick pony in that regard. But Margaret's all right, let's, and she decides to work with them to take him down. Once again, the show definitely gives me leverage vibes, especially in that regard, because it's the leverage team has been in that situation where they get caught up with someone else, and they're hey, actually, let me help you do this whole situation. So, and obviously they've bumped heads with other the other teams and other con men, so it definitely gives me that leverage vibe, especially in that regard. But yeah, and the sad thing too is Margaret eventually starts being hey, I kind of feel bad about this, because she's maybe not everything between us was aligned. She was talking to him, hey, maybe we could go on, instead of putting all this money in a horse, maybe we could go out there, just kind of have our trip around the world adventure. But then he really leans into us no, but this horse, baby, it means a lot to me. So for her, it's right, you're doubling down. This could be an opportunity to bail out of this con. I know, but you don't know I know, because I love the line from Birdie being yeah, con men never think it's going to happen to them. Con men never think they're going to get conned. But the sad thing is, it's for her, it's heartbreak. And you can tell how much it's hurting Birdie, because she sees, I think, too much of what happened with Charlie recently. Because I think at the end of the day, Charlie's the one that got his heart completely broken. But even Birdie liked Tina. I mean, it's not the same thing, but it's still right. You're seeing someone put their heart and soul into something, being truly believing there's love here. And even, I mean, it made Charlie want to double down when he heard the way I wouldn't even call him buddy, they're associate. It's like, yeah, love is like the oldest con in the book or whatever. Like, he has such a jaded perspective on just like, oh man, I'm fleecing this woman so good. He's like so hyped about it. And for Charlie, he's almost kind of like dude, I hate you. I'm gonna love it when we take your money. And they take his money. They ended up taking what, 500,000 from him? Because basically they spread the word of this horse that's supposed to like, hey, we're trying to get the odds to be like 7-1 and it's going to be like 1.7 mil. But they started overselling the hype so much. Now the odds are 4-1, 2.5 million. And obviously she's already put in her money and it's like, well, she's a very stickler for the money. So we can't like just change the deal all of a sudden. So he ended up having to split that difference. Because she was only going to be in for like, they were able to get her in for like 2 million at most or whatever, but then like he had to kind of split that difference of adding in his own money. So at the end, they didn't touch Margaret's money. I even love that she was like talking to Birdie like, okay, let's burn this prick. And she's like, yes, ma'am. And so ultimately they took him down. He's none the wiser. So they screwed him out of $500,000 and he has no idea. Which is very heartbreaking that it all played out that way, especially from, Birdie even felt bad for Margaret, but it's like, hopefully she'll bounce back. And because, once again, like, they are in a very, like, Robin Hood bad. And we're going after, like, bad people, sure, but we're not going to go after someone who's honest, who's been, done a lot of good, like, actually gives back a lot of her money. Like, we're not going to target someone like that. That's why they decided to help her. It's like, cool, it's a win-win. You get to keep your money and find out the guy that you're trying to, like, dedicate your life with, he's just going to up and leave you because it's all a con. Plus, we get our payment, not from you, but basically you helping us take him down and also steal from him. So it all worked out on that front. But I thought that was such a neat development. Another side of the episode is Emily. I'm gonna say Emma meeting the family. Like, obviously, her and Charlie have been spending more and more time together. He's teaching her sign language. I even love that when she was leaving his place and ran into his niece, Ollie, and it's like, she's signing like, oh, you Charlie's new girlfriend or whatever, and she's signing like, I'm Emma. I thought that was really sweet. And Ollie's the one that kind of broke the news in front of everybody, specifically in front of Birdie, who brought it up into their parents. It's like, oh, wow, new girlfriend already, so we want to meet this mysterious person. So Emma gets brought over because I think for her it's like, yeah, especially because like last episode was kind of a bit of a roadblock for them, but now it's like her being like, no, I don't want to kind of like fall back. So it's like, right, he wants to meet he wants me to meet his parents. His parents want to meet me. So it's like yeah, like I'm going to put myself out there. And obviously, they love her. I love Fred, because Fred's like, oh, she referenced someone else before being it might even been like Jones or whatever, being like a Gemini or something. And it's like, oh, I'm like, nice. So she's like, oh yeah, like, they're my birth stones. And her friend's like, a Gemini? And it's like, oh boy, she's like, Virgo rising. And it's like, we'll get along just fine. I am not well versed in like the constellation stuff, birth months and stuff like that. Like, especially when you're like, oh yeah, I'm a Virgo, sun rising and something like that. I don't know that extra bit. I know some of my aspects as a Cancer. I'm like, oh, like we're moody and other stuff like that. Like a lot of, I don't believe in it, but it is interesting that a lot of parallels of my personality do line up with like a Cancer in that regard. So I've never actually looked into like the Chinese zodiac, because I know I'm a monkey and I don't know if like there's any correlation, and I've never, which is actually jacked up, just because of like, racial connotations. That's me connecting dots that don't need to be connected. But I've never looked into the like personality traits and stuff like that of like the Chinese zodiac, and like as being born in the year of the monkey, like what that correlates to my own personality and stuff. Like tangent and all that. So I just thought that was a funny bit. And I also I thought it was really sweet when Emma sees Charlie's dad kind of struggling when he's trying to find the loggers, and she's like, right, this is too many beers to kind of hold at once. And he's like, wow, you actually, yeah, my son, actually, I was wrong. He does know how to pick a winner. Especially because his priest buddy is there. So I guess it's like, that's an interesting friendship. It's like your buddy's a priest, and he knows about your life, because it's like, oh, it's it's a whole conversation about how the fact is that Emma doesn't really know the real Charlie, and Charlie's scared to tell her the truth because he's like, right, if I tell her the truth, she's going to run the other way. So for him, it's a tough thing to deal with in that, because this is someone you really like, you want to be open and honest with, especially considering like, well, you didn't have that issue with Tina, well, until you found out she was fleecing you the entire time. So that's when the issue kind of arises. But who knows like how far in advance, like how far back Tina was it a plan from the beginning? Or is it something that she came up with later on? We probably won't know for a while. Once again, depending. That storyline, once again, I keep bringing it up, has to circle back around at some point in time. But anyway, focusing on everything. Everyone's really liking Emma, except for Birdie. But Birdie's kind of has a reservation because she's very protective of her brother. And especially after recent events. It's like, right, she wants to find out whether or not Emma is who she claims to be, which Emma comes from a prominent enough family that a lot of who she is online. You can find a lot about her. So it's like, hey, they're playing darts and stuff. And it's like, hey, when was your last relationship? My last relationship ended the day I met Charlie at the bar. It's like, huh, interesting. As I get it, a rebound situation. And I get it. You want to protect your brother. I want to protect my brother as well. You know, but I love that, like, Emma's really good at darts. It's like, all right, so you're actually better at darts. And I love Birdie being like, all right, this time I'll use my right hand. So I guess it's like, right, she's been using her less dominant hand now. It's like, oh, let me show you how it's done with my dominant hand. So it's like, yeah, does seem like it all worked out in the end because of that. Does seem like Birdie's kind of willing to give him a chance. Like the entire family, Ollie and Emma definitely hit it off and stuff like that. It's like that kid. It's like kids being the little stinkers that they are. The fact of the matter is, she was like, she was making reference or something to like when they hooked up or whatever, and Charlie would be like, whoa, what are you doing? You know, I even love when she first talked to Emma, she was like, oh, you and Uncle Charlie, and she did her hands like the whole kissy thing with her. I think that's so adorable. They also touched on something in this episode I thought was interesting too, because it was something I was curious about, and I think I literally brought it up last episode, was about Birdie. It seems like they reference, I think his name is Simon. He was calling up Birdie, but I think it's Ollie's dad. And it's like, oh yeah, he's about, 10 years of PTA meetings behind or whatever. Because I guess he's been an absentee father and now he wants to be in their lives. I wonder, does he know about what that family is and what they do? And maybe it's going to be a thing of he's going to try and take he's going to try and take Ollie from Birdie, because it's like, hey, I know what your family does. I know what danger you're mixed up in. So I don't know if that's the thing, what his circumstances are. Was he just a deadbeat dad? Were there extenuating circumstances? Is he trying to make up for all that? I'm curious to see how that plays out. But I thought that was kind of a nice little, it's just one line of dialogue, and then like, oh, let's talk about the con we're running. It's like, oh, we're really switching subjects? And it's like, yeah, we are. So that's all we really got on that. But I had asked that question last episode about like the situation with Ollie's dad. So it's going to be interesting to see if we get more on that front. Another part of this episode is Daphne. So, turns out Connor has no idea that Daphne's his sister. Also, I'm wondering, it had to be a different actor. I'm pretty sure it was a different actor that played, because sometimes casting stuff does change between like a pilot and the rest. Because one of those production things I now know, like the time between a pilot and the rest of a season being filmed can be months later. So like casting can end up changing. So I believe the actor who played Connor in the first episode is a different actor. Because I think that's the actor from, what was his character's name? Was his character's name Aiden? He was in ABC-wise Revenge. I want to say more recent. I wouldn't say more recent, but I want to say, wasn't he in like if I remember correctly, he was in Longmire for a bit. But either way, he was talking to Daphne because Daphne's kind of running things a little bit differently. I guess he doesn't know that she's kind of got the go-ahead from their dad, because once again, at the time, he didn't know that was his sister, but it's like, didn't know that their dad had kind of given her go-ahead to do what she wants to do. But I think even McGuire doesn't even know what she's doing. But basically, she's like making shorthand deals with like the other like gangs that are basically in the same drug business as them, specifically the same stuff, and she's like paying lower prices for it because she's trying to expand their network by bringing in, making good relationships with other people. And it's like, right, kind of want to bring it all into fold as she's expanding the business because she's got the mind for this. Once again, she's the reason why McGuire's business expanded over in like Europe and stuff like that. Anyway, so now it is a situation of, they could tell something was up, like the moment Daphne's doing her usual threatening. She's like, yeah, you're going to have that money. But it's like, right, it's Saturday. We got time. Like, I didn't like it. Like, we got time. It's like, oh, really? Do I need to call Connor? He's like, no, you want to use my phone or what? Go ahead, call him. And because he called her bluff and he saw it in her eyes. I was like, well, why would she be afraid to call Connor? Once again, Connor doesn't know that she's up here doing all these business deals behind everyone's back, trying to handle things herself, because she even had to calm him down by being like, yo, the money situation will be right. Obviously, you're the one that kind of screwed the pooch on that last deal, but I'm the one that's going to fix the money situation. It's going to be fine. And he's like, all right, because if you don't, I'm going to be making my way to the States, and then we're going to have a problem. So... But at the end of an episode, Charlie ended up, with Birdie's help, ended up calling Connor and telling him about what she was doing. And the fact is that that's his sister. It's like, yeah, she's coming for the crown. So the easiest way to deal with Daphne is also have her basically having to deal with a war on her own front, because Connor's going to try and assert his dominance, being like, yo, you got to play second fiddle because this is my jam. This is my heritage. I'm the one that's supposed to be running things. So that's going to get her off their back, at least for a little bit, because she's going to have her own situation to deal with. But she also needs the money from their situation to help fuel her situation too. So, which that's a whole issue in itself, because obviously you see at one point Emma's talking to like an FBI agent, and it's like, yeah, the FBI's kind of thinking like, well, with McGuire locked up and drugs are kind of still rampant, but it's like they're not making enough money, so it's like, oh, like I guess the whole operation has fell apart. But then when they're looking at the money that's going into like the account that's connected to the McGuires, and it's like how much they're potentially like spending on, it's like, no, they're building relationships. Like she figured out, Emma's like, they've got to be building relationships. Like Daphne is planning something big. And then all of a sudden at the end of the episode, she gets an envelope. And I just think the timing is interesting, considering at that exact moment, well, later on, Charlie doesn't get Emma's phone. I mean, she's at the office, so it makes sense. But he gets grabbed. Now, there's 3 different groups of people that could have grabbed him. Now, it could have been Connor, it could have been Daphne, or it could have been the CIA. I don't think so. Well, there's also the 4th possibility that it's someone from the past that they screwed over that's come back to get them. I doubt it's like home dude from this episode, their acquaintance. I don't think it was him, like, because he's still in the dark when he called him later on about everything. So those are the 4 parties I'm thinking. Like I said, Connor, Daphne, because those would be 2 separate parties, or the CIA. But I don't know if Emma would do that. If anything, she would go after like Charlie by himself. So I don't think she's quite figured, because I was thinking like, not unless it ends up being, because she ended up filling out the forms, so they might have done a deep dive on Charlie's background. Like she might have gotten that manila envelope that has all this stuff about Charlie and his family and the crooks that they are, because he's like, oh, I want to talk to you about something. So he's probably wanting to be honest with her, once again, not knowing she's a CIA agent. So, but she might be at the office and she hasn't been able to react to that yet. Like she probably hasn't been able to kind of deal with the fall of that yet, because she did have to, like, because of that, you have to have like they made the whole point of it like last episode too, of like, right, you got to sign those forms when it comes to like a relationship. So they probably do a deep dive on people, and she probably found out about Charlie. So like I said, so I threw it on the list of like, it might be the CIA, but I feel like Emma would handle that herself first. She'd confront Charlie first before getting the agency involved. So that's why I'm probably leaning now, having kind of talked myself out of it. It's like, most likely it might be a 4th party. We'll see. Because I was like, not unless Daphne found out about him calling Connor and screwing the pooch on that. So, but like I said, I'm leaning more towards maybe a 4th party. Either way. So there's that element as well. I also didn't talk about it, but I did like that Ollie pulled that, I thought they were going to come because they introduced the tracker element. I was honestly thinking like, oh yeah, like they're going to use that at some point in time to put it on Daphne. And it was like, no, it was Ollie that decided to do it. Like, yeah, she's kept out of the loop, but it's like, right, you want to know where this woman is all the time. So like, yeah, like she's someone that's kind of an issue for my family. So yeah, I hooked you guys up like that because obviously. Birdie's very protective of her daughter. It's like, I need to know where you are at all times. And I guess because maybe things have come up in the past where like, because maybe like, Ollie got lost or something like that. And maybe that's just where that paranoia kind of kicks into the point that you're tracking your kid like that. So it's not even like, oh, you have a phone tracker. It's like, no, like it's a full blown, just straight up tracker, it seems like. Either way, I'm very excited to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.